Slave, barbarian, warrior, thief, Conan.
They said you'd come, a man of great strength, conqueror, one who could crush the snakes of the earth.
Purveyors of their own deaths.
He's evil, a sorcerer who can summon demons.
Day of doom is here! What daring! What arrogance! I salute you.
Out of an age undreamed of comes the most incredible adventurer of all. The man they call Conan the Barbarian. Coming to a theater near you from Universal Pictures.
Welcome to the latest episode of the B Movie Club. I'm your host, Kevin. This week we're discussing the 1982 adventure fantasy classic, Conan the Barbarian, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. You got Max von Sydow, James Earl Jones. It's an all-star cast. For those of you joining us for the first time, each week on the B Movie Club, I discuss certain guilty pleasures and forgotten classics of the past. You can go ahead and go to our page on Facebook, Original B Movie Club, and give us the big thumbs up. Also go to our page on YouTube at KD9575. Hit the subscribe button. It's totally free. Don't forget to go to our page on Twitter at the B Movie Club. Go ahead and follow me, subscribe, like me on Facebook, do all these things. You get all the latest updates whenever I post a new video. Any B-movie-ish links I find, B-movie-ish articles, I just pass it on to you, okay? Don't forget to spread the word. The more the merrier. Conan the Barbarian. 10,000 years BC. Young Conan is born to a barbarian family, okay? When suddenly the evil troops of, I guess he's kind of a religious leader, Thulsa Doom, washes over the village, killing everybody except for him. He escapes, but he's taken into slavery. So for the first several years of his life, he's just pushing this thing around. I don't know what it is, some kind of a mill, perhaps, okay? I'm not up on 10,000 BC agriculture, if that's what it is. So then he grows up, and of course now for pushing this thing for 100 years, he's got huge guns. People are realizing, hey, you're way too big and buff to be working on the mill, okay? So now they basically turn him into a gladiator. Because he's so big and muscly, he quickly beats up everybody and becomes, you know, kind of a legendary gladiator type, okay? Eventually, for whatever reason, they free him from slavery, and he's out doing his thing. But inside, he's still kind of like, I've got this rage inside of, you know, I'm angry at those people for murdering my family. So I'm gonna get those guys one way or another. He meets up with a buddy, and they become kind of like thieves. Like they steal what they need. They meet another lady, Valeria, who becomes kind of a love interest. She's kind of a barbarian woman. So while they're out doing things, they meet the good King Osric, who says, "Hey, my daughter's been basically has joined this cult, the snake cult, under Thulsa Doom. All these young people are joining the cult. They're like the Moonies or something. I don't know. They're joining this cult. I need you to get her back. Whatever it takes. You know, I'll give you whatever gold you need. Take care of it. And Conan, who's basically a mute at this point, who said like 4 words the entire movie. He's just kind of thinking to himself. I'm inferring that he's thinking to himself, hey, I was going to kill those snake people anyway. You know, I'll pick up your daughter while I'm out. Okay? I'll take care of it. Me and my buddies will handle this. So they keep kind of sneaking in and dealing with things. At one point, Conan disguises himself as one of the priests to get in there. There's a lot. Really, the plot's not that important. Okay? There's numerous times where Conan and his buddy, like Valeria and Subutai, are out there just doing their thing with the swords, stabbing people and hacking at them. Good stuff. I don't want to spoil everything. I don't want to reveal the thrilling climax of the movie. Okay? For those of you guys who don't know, Conan was originally kind of a pulp fiction from the early 1900s, written by Robert E. Howard, excuse me, about this barbarian named Conan who'd go out and kind of battle scary things that were going on 10,000 years before Christ, that sort of thing. And they were popular around 1925 or thereabouts. And then in the 60s, they kind of gathered more of a popularity because, you know, Lord of the Rings and things like kind of these fantasy elements were much more popular for whatever reason. So in the 70s, then comic books started to come out and things like that. So they were like, hey, we should make this movie. That sounds like a good idea. They brought in Oliver Stone to write the original script, and he looked at all the comic books and things like that. But he made his script, his version of Conan took place in the future, like it was a kind of a post-apocalyptic thing going on there, rather than taking place in, you know, prehistoric times or whatever. You know, so it was like going to cost $40 million to make this, which was a huge sum of money. It's still a huge sum of money, but it's definitely a huge sum of money at that time. So they're like, I don't know if this is going to work. They brought in John Milius, who also was kind of a famous writer. He worked on like Dirty Harry and Magnum Force, some of those things. And he said, okay, I'll direct it, but I'm going to want to rewrite a lot of this stuff. And he got rid of all the future stuff. He kind of pared down a lot of the action sequences, a lot of the things. Just like, you know, we want it to be a fantasy thing. Not anything, not a $40 million movie, however. Arnold Schwarzenegger had, you know, he was basically famous for being Mr. Universe up to this point. He'd been in some movies, but nothing that really made him into a star. Other people that they were considering included Sylvester Stallone, who was kind of hot at this point because he'd done, you know, Rocky, and I think they'd already done like Nighthawks or whatever, one of those things. And of course, Charles Bronson, even though Charles Bronson would have been 55 years old at this point, and was a little kind of wrinkly person, so they said, okay, we're going to go with the bodybuilder. Say no more. Now, because even though Arnold Schwarzenegger had been in America for 20 years at this point, his accent was still so thick that they're like, okay, you know, there was supposed to be like this narration at the beginning and the end of the movie that Conan was supposed to deliver, and they're like, that's ridiculous. We cannot understand half the things he's saying. So they rewrite, they create a new part, have a different character do the narration, and they're like, and we got to lose a lot of these lines, okay? This ain't gonna work, man. He can't be given, you know, soliloquies going on and on. People will never know what's going on unless we're gonna put subtitles in this thing. So they cut down his lines as drastically as they could. Now they brought him in, huge chest, huge shoulders, huge arms. They're like, you know, you're gonna have difficulty doing all the kind of acrobatic sword stuff that we're thinking about. So he actually had to tone down the muscles. Actually had to kind of tone down his workout to be able to do all that stuff. And he worked with, you know, sword masters to learn the sword fighting, martial arts guys to get that kind of fighting going on there. learned how to ride horseback. The movie was originally supposed to be filmed in Yugoslavia, but there were problems there, so they moved it to Spain. This was Schwarzenegger's first big "you're the star," thing that they were doing here. So he basically had to learn how to act. Okay, like I said, they'd hired James Earl Jones to play Thulsa Doom, the villain, and they became like quick friends, Schwarzenegger and James Earl Jones. And James Earl Jones essentially taught Arnold Schwarzenegger how to act. He's like, well, here's some things you could do. I'm not a miracle worker, mind you, but I'll help you out. And in return, Schwarzenegger helped James Earl Jones kind of get into shape. So it's kind of the symbiotic relationship. It's good stuff. So they were working together. Valeria, the love interest, was cast. Her name was Sandal Bergman. She was kind of a dancer, kind of a Broadway type. She was in like All That Jazz a few years earlier. She's like Xanadu, things like that, where she's dance. But they said, okay, now you're the warrior woman, which was fine. They gave her a lot of lines. And interestingly enough, even though Conan and Valeria are like this passionate love story, I guess, Conan literally says 5 words to her the entire movie, and they're all when he first meets her. So there you go, good times. I guess when there's that much passion, you can just kind of say a lot with just your eyes and things like that. Good times. And the love scene that they have in this, it's obviously his first love scene on camera, her first love scene on camera. I guess it was very awkward. They're like, what are we doing? But it seemed like it worked out okay. Legend has it that people wanted to kind of cash in on the Conan movie thing. So they were going to make action figures, Conan action figures, that kids would get, and like G.I. Joe or whatever, Star Wars. But when the toy makers actually saw the movie and saw much like violence and there's like nudity and sex and all this stuff, they're like, we can't sell these to kids, So they, dyed the Barbarian's hair blonde, and rumor has it that's how they came up with He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Okay, so there you go. Good times. I heard that's just a rumor. Okay, that may or may not be entirely factually accurate, but you know what? It's a good story. Okay, if nothing else. They had difficulty finding appropriate stunt doubles for Arnold Schwarzenegger and for Sandal Bergman, so they basically had to do all their own stunts. So because of that, at one point Sandal Bergman said the top of her finger was cut off with a sword accident, and Arnold Schwarzenegger injured his back in a horse riding accident. At one point, like wild dogs are supposed to be chasing Conan. And when you see that, evidently Arnold's really running for his life because the dogs were poorly trained and were just dangerous and biting people. So that was real. That was that was like method acting. I don't know what that was. So good times had by all. Conan currently has a 72% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. I enjoy it. It's really the movie that kind of kicked off Schwarzenegger's popularity. A few years later, he did like The Terminator, and that really kind of boosted him up. But it was like his first 2 movies were like, hey, here's that big, strong guy who doesn't say much. Good times. Could he not get like an acting coach or a vocal coach or something to work with the accent? Maybe not. So I enjoyed it. If you want, fantasy, swords, and stuff like that, this is the movie for you. It's not family friendly. As I said, it is violent, and there's sex and nudity. Whatever floats your boat. Okay? There's a little something for everybody, I guess. So there you have it. Next week, I'm going to be moving away from the fantasy action of Conan the Barbarian. We're going to be doing the horror, sci-fi, disturbing behavior. There you go. It has Katie Holmes in it, James Marsden. It's an all-star cast, to say the least. So check that out. Both these movies are, of course, streaming instantly on Netflix, so check it out. Send any favorite scenes, favorite quotes, comments, or questions, and I may talk about it on the show. And don't forget to send any movie suggestions. Any movies you're like, you know what, there's that one crazy movie I saw 20 years ago that no one knows about. Maybe Kevin can talk about it. That's what I'm here for, okay? So good times. Don't forget to go to our page on Facebook, Original B Movie Club, and hit the thumbs up button. Go to our page in YouTube and subscribe. It's totally free. And follow me on Twitter at the B Movie Club. As you know, I end every episode with a totally out of context quote. And here it is. To crush your enemies, to see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentations of their women. That is simultaneously the worst Arnold Schwarzenegger impression in the world, and Arnold's longest line in this movie. So there you go. Good times had by all. So thank you for joining us. Next week, disturbing behavior. Be well.